I'm really, really pleased to introduce Loki, and at 22 years of age, gosh, that's young, Loki has been involved in a number of leadership roles with a variety of non-profit organisations, including ours, of course. Loki has volunteered throughout Sydney in areas of community need, ranging from youth disadvantage to homelessness. Loki is studying law at the University of Technology and is also completing a scholarship with the School for Social Entrepreneurs. Concerned that only 1 in 6 young people volunteer in the community sector, Loki founded a social enterprise to challenge this norm. Over the next 2 years, Loki plans to engage 500 high schools and 90,000 young people in the Sydney community. Wow, we're going to be busy finding opportunities, aren't we? Loki also works with the Australian Human Rights Commission to investigate alleged breaches of human rights within immigration detention. In addition, he serves as a non-executive director on a number of boards, including ours, as I've mentioned, and the UTS Brennan Justice and Leadership Foundation program. Loki's contribution to youth and community engagement was recognised in December 2011, when we got to know him very well when we named him New South Wales Youth Volunteer of the Year. Please welcome Loki Ball.
Thanks, Lynn. I'd too like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we meet on today, and also give my special welcome to any Aboriginal people who might be in the room with us now. Each year at this conference, we meet to learn something new. We forge valuable networks and we collaborate to overcome sector challenges. So as a conference presenter, participant and board member here at the Centre, I must thank our CEO Lynn, the wonderful Jackie Hastings, our conference organiser, and the rest of the Centre's team for their extraordinary efforts in the last few weeks pulling this together. Could you please put your hands together to thank them? Minister Dominello, you really are the perfect politician. People may not agree with everything you say, but you say it so nicely that they'll still like you. In all seriousness though, Minister Dominello really has been a leader for us. He's been a leader not just because he does what he says, but because he consults with the sector. Minister Dominello's office, with the support of the Centre, as he mentioned, consulted with over 3,000 volunteers and managers. Many of you are here today, which led to the recognition of the Rights of Volunteers report published in March this year. The Minister will use these findings from the report as a roadmap to steer his work and his agenda, and I commend the Minister for his efforts. Could you please thank Minister Dominello? Well, I'd like to get to the topic of my talk today, which is young people. Who are they? Where do they come from? What do they want from us? You've probably seen some of them in your life. Maybe a sibling or cousin has children. Sometimes we're on TV. We're often in the media too, but not always for the right reasons. Whatever your relationship is with them, I have a challenge for you. And it's a challenge I'm going to illustrate through story. David is a young man, aged 18, and his best asset, without a doubt, is his capacity for compassion. David is the son of Sri Lankan refugees who settled in Australia only 12 years ago. David spent the first 4 years of his life in war-torn Sri Lanka and the next 2 years living in a squalid refugee camp. When he came to Australia, David's life changed. He went to school and he did very well. His family found work and they now live very comfortably. He made many friends and they care for each other. When I first met David, he was participating in a youth leadership workshop I ran. I asked David what he wanted to do, what he wanted to be, and he simply said, I want everybody to have the opportunity to care for each other. When I asked him what this meant, he told me about his love for Australia and its people. He told me about all the good he wanted to do and the joy he felt as a volunteer. The workshop I ran was about positive refugee role models and their vision for Australia. David's vision is that every young person has the opportunity to create change by helping others. When I asked David what stands in the way of his vision, he simply said, adults do not challenge us to do great things, and we won't believe we can until they do. And so that is my challenge for you. As leaders in the voluntary sector, how can you inspire the young people in your community to do great things? How can you challenge young people to make a difference by helping others? How can we draw out the David in everyone? What I want you to take away from David's story is that by placing young people at the centre of change, we can draw out the very best in them. It's not fair for me to just ask questions, so I'm going to talk a bit about some of the research involving young people and volunteering. What factors predict whether young people will volunteer? What are their key motivations? What constraints do they face which stop them from participating in community service? There's quite a bit to learn from investigating the answers to these questions, and Melissa Hyde and Simon Knowles, two social science researchers, published a very insightful paper on these questions earlier this year in the Australian Journal of Psychology. Hyde and Knowles found that the most significant factor influencing young people's decision whether to volunteer was their own belief in their capacity to help others, or as David said to me, their capacity to make a difference by caring for others. We know that young people possess these capacities. They have valuable skills, they have plenty of enthusiasm, and most importantly, they're very compassionate. So what can we do about this lack of self-belief? How can we disprove their perception? How do we empower young people to take action and make a difference to the work you do? Albert Einstein summed up this challenge best when he said, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, then it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid." What Albert Einstein said about fish is also true for young people. If they're judged by adult standards and expected to do adult things, then young volunteers will believe they have very little capacity to help others. So volunteer organisations must continually make an effort to engage young people within their capacities, not beyond them, so we can disprove this perception. Hyde and Knowles concluded in their paper that even a brief positive experience with volunteering at a young age means that young people will have a much stronger intention to volunteer in the future. So when I challenge you to place young people at the centre of the work you do, to give young people in your community an opportunity to help others, we're really talking about the future of volunteering. And in a post-GFC economy where many organisations are facing unprecedented resource constraints, with major changes across Australia's philanthropic sector, we can't simply ignore this potential and underutilised resource. So what do young people actually want? Well, not surprisingly, they want new experiences. They want personal growth. And they want to be challenged so they feel like valued members of your organisation. But young people also lead very busy lives. Between university and school, part-time work and many family responsibilities, this takes up a significant amount of time. So one-off or episodic volunteer roles, contained in nature rather than intensive long-term roles, are often desirable. And there's an organisational advantage here too. If you can mobilise a large group of young people for a low commitment but high impact fundraising or awareness campaign, then that takes up less of your time. Most universities now offer formal or informal work and learning opportunities within degree programs. So if you contact your nearest university and speak to their community development manager, ask if they can match their students who have very valuable skills with your organisation, the university will love you. Of course, there's a great advantage to university students too. If you can engage them within their degree programs, it's good for them because they can learn, give back, and develop new skills at the same time. In their research paper, Hyde and Knowles said that a significant factor impacting whether young people volunteer is a lack of awareness about volunteering. Not what it is, but what they can do. So we as a sector need to become better at communicating with young people. We need to target them through school and university notice boards. We should host information evenings and training events especially for them. And if you want to reach young people through social media, then you'll need a Facebook page or at least a website. Something I would encourage every organisation in this room to do is to create a youth advisory committee. A group of young people representative of the diverse groups in your local community who can provide advice to you about how your work relates to youth. And once you give a group of young people autonomy and a sense of control, and they feel like their contribution is being valued, then things tend to get out of hand. They'll want to help wherever they can. And young people get other young people on board too, much better than adults ever will. Of course, before you can get young people volunteering at your organisation, you need to make sure that it's safe for them to do so. And the New South Wales Commission for Children and Young People have done some fantastic work in this area. Their online toolkits can actually take you through the steps you need to take to ensure that the appropriate policies and practices are in place to protect young people you work with, and I commend this resource to you. So these are just some of the very practical things you can do to reimagine volunteering and young people. Before I finish this morning, I want to briefly explain one of the approaches I use when working with young volunteers. It's called skill banking, not the Minister's time banking. And for those who have registered for my workshop after this session, you'll learn just what that is. In a way, skill banking is a paradigm shift from traditional volunteering because it focuses on the skills of people rather than the needs of organisations. Its purpose is to place young volunteers at the centre of positive social change by harnessing their unused skills. The way we harness them is by asking them what they're good at. And broadly, there are 3 skill categories. Head skills, which are things they know a lot about. Heart skills, which are things they have a passion for. And hand skills, which are things they can do very well. For one of my clients, we did this exercise with over 150 young people in their local community. And once we'd surveyed them, we had this awesome bank of talent. And this inventory of skills can be used to find out what a young volunteer really wants to do, how they want to give back, rather than place expectations on them. I think it's important for us to keep an open mind about using different approaches, such as skill banking, within our sector. It's very easy to fall into a lull and convince ourselves that we don't need to do things differently. But the truth is, and the reason we're all here today, is that there's always something better and new to learn and put into practice. Thank you for your great work, and thank you for your time today.